So who are we? We are Natural Spaces Domes, owned and operated by Dennis Johnson and Tessa Hill, located in North Branch, Minnesota. We have a complex of an office dome, 3 model dome homes, a screen porch dome, 2 workshop domes, and a furnished prototype of a mini dome, our option for small living spaces. We invite you to visit our dome complex for an in-person tour wearing a mask at this time. Natural Spaces domes are easy to build, healthy living spaces, and they're fantastically energy efficient while providing you the best housing value around. We started Dome Talk as a way to engage with the dome community, create a forum for all your dome questions, whether they're natural spaces domes or not, and to provide a space for dome enthusiasts to connect with one another. Now I'd like to introduce our hosts, Dennis Johnson and Derrick Miller. Dennis is a dome guru and has decades of experience designing and fabricating domes. He knows what works and what doesn't and has designed over 1,000 domes worldwide. His patented dome connector system is the best available. He will help you at every step of your dome dream as a contractor, builder, designer, and dome owner. You're definitely going to want to talk to Dennis. Our project manager, Derrick Miller, joined the NSD team a few years ago, bringing with him a lifetime of construction experience and handles a wide variety of responsibilities for us. From collaborating with Dennis on project management and client contact to working in the shops to refine building techniques, he is familiar with the dome process from the ground up. He's also our video guy, filming and designing the educational videos for virtual classes and tours. So Dennis and Derrick, would you like to say hi? And Tess?
Hi there.
Hello there. We welcome you to the last weekly or bi-weekly Zoom talk. I'm originating
Until June.
till June, right? And we're originating in North Branch, Minnesota, which is our headquarters. And Derrick is sitting in a virtual dome down in Mankato, Minnesota, as is Carrie in a different virtual dome.
That's right. It is not nice enough to be sitting outside right now, not in Minnesota.
No.
Hey,
no.
it's nice up here. So.
I know I was getting a little video footage earlier, Dennis, for the dome school stuff we were talking about, and I noticed an icicle in the gutter by your office. And I almost filmed it because I was like, well, that's, not something you usually see this time of year, but I guess in Minnesota sometimes it is. So. But
Well, we hope that everyone is slightly. I hope everyone is slightly warmer. All right, well, we should get going. So our first question tonight comes from Drew in Claryville, New York. Drew would like to know, Drew is curious about where in the mini dome would be a mechanical room for things like flash water heaters, radiant heat, well-made pressure tanks, things like that. Also curious what the smallest truck the kit could fit on, or if it was possible to pick the kit up.
yeah, well, we actually had the same question that we answered, I think maybe a week or two ago, but I know there was a couple issues with some of the links getting on, but kind of make an abbreviated answer of that one again is, it is possible and it is challenging. I mean, the mini dome is small square footage wise, so you don't have a lot of room for mechanicals, but generally you can fit, you also don't need large mechanicals in a small dome like that. So oftentimes you can fit what you need to underneath the staircase. We have had some designs with just a dedicated small mechanical room that doesn't need a lot of space. It depends on if you're like the last couple of mini domes we had sold. The customers are just going to use mini splits, which will take care of their AC and their heat, and mounts on the wall. And so it doesn't take up any room in the door as far as on the floor square footage. And then just instantaneous hot water heaters don't take up a lot of room. So there's a lot of solutions, and it can be done and has been done. But it definitely is a little more challenging than maybe if you had a larger home where you have a lot more room for something like that, but it is not a problem. What do you think about the transport of a kit like that, Dennis? I mean, we've talked about that a little bit because typically we pre-build the front walls, which are fairly large. So it would be kind of tough to get in a small truck, but I think you were kind of mentioning maybe the biggest U-Haul or something would be able to handle that.
Well, it relates to the size of the door opening in the U-Haul. And the wall panels are 9 foot wide and 7.5 feet high. So you could fit it through that door, maybe. Some of those U-Hauls, just the doors don't open that wide, that tall. So I think you got to check out the specs on that. It'd be hard to get it into a large U-Haul, depending on what you're buying. You know, we sell all the windows in the front wall of that. I call it the front wall, the 2-story wall in the mini dome. Is there a picture of the mini dome we have up here?
I'm
Press
sure
you
Gary's
press
got
you
one,
for
right?
that one out.
Maybe in there somewhere, yeah.
And it's 3/5 of a 29-foot diameter dome. So you have 3/5 of the struts, 3/5 of the exterior panels. There's a picture right there that's showing you the outside look. So those wall sections, there's actually where that red-orange sunscreen comes across, there's 4 panels on the bottom part and 4 panels on the top part. So they come to you in those sections. Pre-framed openings for the windows and doors. So there's quite a bit there that I'm going to say, there it is. There shows you the framework that we're dealing with. Now this one we built on site here. This is our prototype. So these sections aren't really readily easily seen here, but basically there's a top and a bottom that you get. Top section and the bottom section have window openings and door openings put into them. You can see a skylight in the back on the lower section of the triangles where she's pointing right there. There's one over on the left side that's in the kitchen. So those are pre-built, ready to be put into the panel. The question really relates to exactly what are you purchasing from us. We do a lot of options on it, so but it's doubtful you could fit everything into a U-Haul truck. And I haven't, as you know, I haven't seen a big U-Haul truck in a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I like a small container would work. Sometimes we'll have people ship small containers, like a 20-foot container. That would be no problem to get that in there. You know, Dennis and I were talking about, we never did finish the conversation, but the possibility of maybe just cutting the components for the front walls and not pre-assembling them for you. If it was a situation where that just, you know, you really needed to be able to get it yourself for some reason, but yeah, okay.
All right.
All right.
And I'll interrupt you real quick, Carrie. If anybody wants to jump in, like if we didn't really, you know, address the question exactly what you're asking, you know, we definitely welcome interactivity from you guys. So if you want to jump in and kind of elaborate on your question or let us know if we missed something, feel free to jump in on these as we go through them. We'd love to hear from you guys. So, all right, Carrie, sorry about that.
That's okay. The next question comes from Rachel in West Fulton, New York. And Rachel's wondering just the general process and cost, and wondering if you can add on to your dome in the future.
Yes, I think the question of adding onto the dome, I don't know if Derrick's got a shot of our complex.
I did get a shot. I didn't get a chance to upload it yet, Dennis, but
Okay, well,
I'll make
the answer is really yes.
If
But
you
you
guys
wanna
come to
plan
dome
for it.
school, I'll have it on there though, so.
Okay, there you go. So we built the main dome in 1975. We added on a 26-foot dome within a year. We later on, 15 years later, took down the 26-foot dome addition that was the girls' bedroom. And then we put up a 36 high-profile dome, added on to the same link. Later on, we added another extension going off to a sunroom and to another 30-foot diameter dome. And then 5 years after that one, in 95, added a screen porch dome off of another extension. The trick is if you're looking at a master plan and your master plan is adding more domes or more extensions or more a garage or whatever, and you want to break the dome open, you can certainly do that. You can take out sections of the dome. I could take out in the entire whole section of where these windows are and we've done that from remodeling processes, not here, but on domes. The dome's not going to fall down. There's 250 struts in this dome. You take out 5 or 10, it's not going to fall down. You want to change it, it can be changed. So really the answer is the dome is extremely versatile. In putting your exterior panels in place, you might want to screw them on in the very beginning. If you know that's where the extension is going to go, or you want to add on something in that area, then you don't have to worry about ripping the whole thing apart. So it's very easy to do. It's not hard at all.
Great, great.
Okay.
Now this next question, I think everybody's wondering about this one, so.
The next question comes from Roger in Hobart, Indiana, and it's wondering about the lumber prices that have shot up. Assuming someone wanted to buy an average dome kit, say 40 foot, can you give an estimate of how much more in approximate dollars or percentage someone might be spending in lumber prices versus lumber prices from 2 years ago?
No, we can't. I just have to say it that way. I was on the phone today with a lumber supplier. It is a crazy year. Some of the stuff that we normally do, we can't get right now. We have to wait. So we've got a large stock of material here. We can buy all the main components that we need. Some of the specialty stuff just takes a little longer. What we're seeing in appliances, if you're buying a new house, you're not going to find the right stove that you want. If you do, it might be 2, 3, 6, 9 months before you get that. So it's not lumber prices as much as it is component prices that you may get hung up on. So you buy something that you don't like and then replace it later on. We did raise our prices back here at the end of the year. They went up, I'm going to say 15% based on the lumber. We had a stock of lumber that we had used up at that point. We had to go out to the market and buy, and we had to raise our prices about 15%. So we looked at small, little moderate increases. It just depends on what you're buying. We have a steel supplier for small base plates and different components that we do. Their prices went up. So it's really a situation where we need to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. We can find those components. I had someone email me and ask me if we can find plywood. Yeah, we can find plywood. We usually buy southern yellow faced plywood. Well, that's not available this week, but fir plywood is, fir faced plywood, Doug fir. So we aren't saying that there's no materials out there or that they haven't risen in price. We're saying you have to look and say, what's the alternative? So it's out there. It's just take some planning. Will they go up? Nobody knows. Plywood prices came down a fraction, but something else went up. So we don't know. And the suppliers can't tell you. So.
Right, right. Yeah, it's just a gamble anymore. It seems like it's changing week to week, and hopefully it starts to stabilize. You know, from feedback we've gotten, some of it's COVID related. So now as things are kind of getting back to full speed and the lumber mills are getting back to full speed and they can produce more, hopefully that starts to kind of curb this whole supply and demand issue. And yeah, we all got our fingers crossed. So, all right.
All right.
All
So
right.
we do have a quick follow-up to the question about adding on to the dome.
Sure.
Is can you do additions to domes that are not, can we Natural Spaces do additions to domes that are not NSD domes? Denise has a 3-frequency dome and she's just wondering can you mix and match dome types is I think basically the question.
Yes, we can. It's really talking about what section of your dome is it already there with an opening, or are you going to create an opening? I don't know, or Denise, are you on? I see a dome in the background of Denise, so I'm imagining it's yours.
Yeah.
Is there an opening right now that you have that you want to connect onto?
Yeah, it's really the main entrance, because I
Okay.
took a lot, it was all sliding glass doors. I was on one of these calls before, so I have like the original Bucky.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So I was excited to be part of this again, but I'd like to do like almost like a sun porch type addition to the front area. So I just wasn't sure how you would extend that out based on this structure.
Yeah, if you've already got an opening, you're not coming into your structure, and you probably got it's a panelized dome that you have, and those
Yes.
are a little harder to just open up. But you simply, when you take something out, you just have to, where are the forces going? And you have to analyze where they're going and counteract it. Adding a room onto that side and another dome is easy. You need to brace your walls. There's hidden strap ties in your dome. You don't even know where they are, but I know where they are, having seen this and dealing with older domes. So, and we usually don't mesh the domes together so that you got this bad V joint that's going to collect leaves and rain and snow. There's a connecting link usually between any two domes, varying from 2-3 feet to 15, 16 feet. And you've got a stairway there, and you got this happening, or a greenhouse connection. So all of that is weird. Half of the plans that I have right now coming up are double domes. There's a triple dome. So yeah.
So it would kind of just be like, there would be like a hallway coming off of my opening and then another small dome behind it. Is that kind of what I'm envisioning, or?
Sure, yes. And you can do whatever you want in that opening. Usually there's going to be an opening and then you put a door to the outside.
Okay.
Sometimes you've got enough doors going into the outside and all you want is a connecting link onto that dome. So that's
Okay.
that's a really easy thing. Not hard
Okay,
to do.
I'll look around your site and maybe touch base with you via email about plans and stuff.
Yeah, we have a
some-
section in our plan files that are called groupies. So that's the part that has 2-3 domes joined together, called groupies.
I think we have some domes as well on the on our virtual dome tours that you might be able to look at, that you could get a more of a visual of what it's like to walk through a connecting link. In fact, on the new virtual dome tour we have coming up, we have 3 new domes, and I think 2 of them are double domes. So so that way you'll be able to kind of see. One of them's yeah, I guess they're both garages, but one has an upper floor, so you can kind of see where they go into an upper floor, even into another dome as well. So that might be helpful as far as visualizing it. So,
Okay, thanks so much.
thanks.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Denise. So the next question is not a question, but we're just going to throw this out there to the group. This is from Dan in Montrose, Minnesota, who has a 33-foot 5 1/9 dome. I'm not going to pretend I know what that is. Built in 1977. He replaced his triangle windows a number of years ago and has a leftover point down window that he doesn't need it anymore. And if anyone on Dome Talk needs a free window, you let us know and we will put you in contact with Dan. So I don't know if Tanner, you want to put the main office number in the chat. Just give Nancy or Debbie a call and they can connect you with Dan for your free window. So
You know, one
just a
question
shout
we
out
had on that is, it what are you here, Dan, by any chance? I was gonna say, we were gonna ask you if it was one of the old rounded cornered skylights. Some of the older ones, you know, didn't come to a point. They were kind of rounded on the points of the triangles were a little rounded off. I was just curious. 1977, that's an older one, so I was wondering about that. So I jokingly told Dennis he keeps so many older components so we can reference them if we need to for somebody who has an old dome, or, you know, from a company that's been gone for a long time. And I said, well, we might want to add this one to the museum maybe if, you know, it's in good shape and everything. So, all right, Carrie.
All right, next question.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have to say that's what I love about these dome talks, of just making these connections with the dome community. I think that's awesome. So I'll leave
Right.
it at that.
Right.
So the next question comes from Timothy in Maplewood, Minnesota, who asks, what has been the effect on pricing for a 50-foot dome with the rising lumber prices?
Again, we sort of answered that question. We really can't tell you what increase you're going to have, depending on the components that you have. I will mention the fact that the dome uses 60% less lumber than a conventional house. So when we talk about strut framework, we're talking about pieces of lumber. I mean, I've talked to a contractor who said, oh, I can build a house really efficiently. And I say, well, I'll give you 160 2x8 pieces of lumber, 8 feet long. And I'll give you 105 plywood pieces. Build me a 2,000 square foot house. And he goes, I can't do that. Well, we can. So yes, there's specialized components. It's high grade lumber. We have special connection hardware, but it's extremely efficient when it comes to materials. We're using 3/4 inch plywood on the outside, and they use, if you're lucky, 1/2 inch plywood, most of it 7/16. Or the whole dome is sheathed in OSB board, which is orientated strand wafer board. So anyway, we'll move on. It's kind of a hard question this year to answer, how much more it's going to cost.
Right.
All right. Thank you. So the next question is from David in Ocean Shores, Washington, who asks, what is your architectural preference for the interior lighting fixtures? I noticed the Bear Creek Dome uses a fair amount of suspended fixtures and some track lighting. I assume recessed cans to be impractical, except in the flat interior ceilings of the interior rooms.
I would say you could use recessed cans in a dome just like you could in a conventional home, but the only problem is, and it's the same with a conventional home, is it's just, you don't want to typically punch holes in your ceiling because, you can let a lot of, essentially a lot of water vapor can kind of transfer into your ceiling from within your house. So they even say, even like can lighting in a conventional home is usually not a good idea. But you can do it. It's just the same impact. If you had like foam behind it, then of course it makes no difference. It'll be sealed up anyway. You could do something like that. But I think you brought up a good point the other day, Dennis, where we were having a meeting in the dome that I'm inside here virtually just yesterday, and he has a light above the table, and the cord is hidden behind the batten strips. So you don't really see the cord, but then it allows you the flexibility to move the lighting fixture if you move the cable for some reason, or you get a different cable where you want to center it differently. So it kind of gives you some of that freedom, and it also avoids you putting a hole into your ceiling, which is nice if you have like fiberglass insulation in a ventilated dome, for instance. So what do you think, Dennis?
Tilt it up. Well, I would say don't do it. Don't put can lights in the ceiling of the dome. I'm looking at Denise's dome right now. It's got a hanging light. You notice her picture there. There's a hanging light coming from a outlet box. I can tip my, maybe, I don't want to drop it, but there's the light above this table is a hanging light from a junction box. And we had to guess at where the dining room table would be. Well, we missed it because we changed our furniture grouping. So we can take the light and I'll call it swag it over, create an eye hook in the ceiling and simply take that chain and rehook it so it's more centered. But the reality is, looks fine where it is off center from the dining room table. So, but you punching holes in this the dome shell, you just don't want to do it. You want to keep that to the minimum, unless you're dealing with the hybrid system or a full spray foam insulation. Then you're not dealing with a vapor barrier or air barrier. And that's where you get into problems with these can lights that go up into a ceiling and break through this first line on the inside of a air barrier or vapor barrier. When you do spray foam against the outside, against the inside of the outside panel in the dome, that's your vapor barrier. Now you could put anything you wanted on the inside. You could have a 20, 30 can lights. You haven't opened up that wall cavity. The vapor barrier is behind it. So that's your trick. So if you like can lights, realize that when you put a can light in a dome triangle panel, it's not like a conventional ceiling where it's going to shine straight down. It will shine in the direction of whatever that panel is, 90 degrees to the face of that panel. So how do you light a dome? We've got various lights around here. We got a ceiling, actually a light up in the cupola, 5 lights up in the cupola. LED lights are easy to deal with, very easy to place. So lighting
Yes.
is
Some can lights above your fireplace where you got, a second floor above it. So then you're able to get some
Yeah.
can lights in there. It's kind of hard to see. I think it's, there's, you can see one of them, but so you can do it. You can do it like if, in this case, you've got upper floor above it, so it's not leaking any air into the roof cavity.
Yeah, you're dealing with, that's a ceiling inside. So you can do anything you want on the ceiling inside. You're not breaking through a vapor barrier. So
Right, right.
As a follow-up, John asks if the lighting can go into the hubcaps.
yes, you could put a nice LED light and have colored lights in different ones if you wanted to. We do have a customer in Alabama, near Atlanta, north of Atlanta. They did colored glass in the hubcap. How they got the light behind it, I can't tell you, but she was saying, well, I can just let the sun shine through. I go, no, you can't. That means you've got something on the outside that shouldn't be there. And there's no insulation right there. So you can do LED lights, strip lights, there's a variety of things these days, easy to deal with. I do have a customer that's looking at putting LED strip lights in lieu of the batten strips that we have in the dome. A lot of things you can be creative on with today's lighting, with the LED lights.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the next question comes from Jonathan in Felton, California, who asks, at what point during construction are holes typically cut in the building shell for things like plumbing, vents, chimney, flues, etc.?
You got a photo up there? Or it didn't get up?
No, I think we got some.
Yeah, it's
pictures
up,
here.
because I saw it before.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess to jump in, I'll jump into this first, Dennis, and let you kind of
There it
follow up. But all the construction projects I've been in, typically kind of the order that a house is built is you try to get it covered and waterproofed as soon as possible. So usually you throw up your framing, and once the house is framed up, typically the very next thing is you get your roof covered. So plumbers and anybody who needs to put a vent through your roof that comes in to do that is usually doing it after the fact. So having said that, typically a lot of these vent flashings and different things are designed to go on the roof after the shingling is already completed. So then it can either be the very next thing in the sequence, or it could be the last thing in the sequence. It really doesn't matter at that point, because it's kind of designed to work around the contractors. It'd be a nightmare to try to have everybody sequentially do things in a particular order. I mean, some things you do have to do in an order, absolutely, but as far as the plumbing venting goes, you can kind of, it's not really a concern, I guess, on when the plumber's there in relation to the roofer or in relation to the electrician. I mean, they do have preferences, but I don't know if that, you probably got something to add to that, Dennis, but did you have another shot? I thought you sent a couple photos. Oh, there's just another, that's
Another one. This is a part of the roof panel is in the vertical section of the dome with an extension added on. And it's a vent. That's protected, so we didn't tuck the flashing underneath the shingles. That was a vent for a blueprint machine, actually, that we had. So,
like a vent for a stove too or something.
yeah, a vent for a stove, that's pretty typical. You're going to have a special flashing package. The ones the plumbing vent has is called a storm collar. And that's very typical, can be anywhere. The next question really also relates to the previous slide that you had in talking about how do you waterproof a dome? And it's like, okay, I'm going to say that 8% of our domes are shingled roofs, asphalt shingled roofs. The one you're looking at right here was built in 1995. And the shingle that we're using these days is Malarkey. It's the brand name out of Oregon originally. They're now into the Midwest. They're working their way to the East Coast. So we're going to say that's the best shingle to use at the moment, Malarkey Legacy. If you're looking to re-roof, we have actually shipped them on the semi-truck to the East Coast. So what are the alternatives? The Reinke aluminum shakes. They're going to be more money. We're dealing with something that is, I think the Reinkes are now $320 a square.
Yep. Yep.
And the Malarkey Legacy shingle, which is a high-grade shingle, 50-year shingle, that's a 50-year shingle. Those are $145 a square. Shingles aren't affected, haven't been affected by the pricing. Some colors have been unavailable for like an 8-week delivery time, we found out, because there's so much building going on. And you got a popular color and the plants can't keep up with production. Again, it's the people, they can't hire enough people. So that's what you're dealing with. Again, delays in shipping.
We kind of jumped into Maurice's question from Canada.
Yeah,
so
great.
kind of jumped
Yep.
from one to another there, Maurice. If you have anything, if we missed anything, again, you guys feel free to jump in.
I think a second half to his question was also what is the best insulation technique for the interior?
These days, we're going to talk about a hybrid system that is using spray foam against the outside panel and then fiberglass for the remainder. I don't know if that chart ever got up from last time. Remember that chart that gives us the percentages?
Yeah, I was gonna say Canada might be more, closer to, well, it depends on where he is, I suppose, but
Yeah.
Montreal is probably about 50% like we are.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you want to get this thing up to the insulation level that we tell you that it should be, which is an R60, 60. Code says 49 in most of the country. 39 is the upper part of the South and 30 is the lower part of the South. We still say R60 in Texas, Mississippi, Florida. You're going to cut that heat load down. So this is the different climate zones, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And go to the next one beyond this one, because that's what we're really talking about, is the percentage right there. So if you follow the code, which is the minimum that you should be doing, and if you do, it's the worst insulation amount that you can put in, because it's the minimum code. But you'll see on the right-hand side, if the density of the foam, this 2-pound density closed cell foam, you put that in, we're in zone 7, actually. And it means that 60% of the R value should be the thickness of the foam that gives you that R value. So we need an R30 if we were doing 49. but we're doing an R60, and 60% of that should be the R value of the foam. So it should be 36 in an R value of foam. The rest of it then can be fiberglass. So we do 10 3/4 inch walls. We do 12-inch thick walls. We do 15-inch, 18-inch, 21-inch, and 24-inch. We'll do a 14-inch wall. We're doing a couple of domes right now with 14-inch walls. We have an 8-inch layer of fiberglass and a 6-inch layer of fiberglass. So we play around with that. It's a matter of who you are and how you're doing your house. You really can't do the spray foam yourself, so you're going to pay somebody else to come in and do it. You're going to pay their labor cost. If you're trying to save the most amount of money, if you are an owner builder, then you stick with fiberglass. Can you do a hot roof? Yes, you can. It's a non-vented roof. We can show you how to do that. It can be done basically anywhere in the country. But the dry climate zones in the western states, that's really a real good option. We did a dome in near Salt Lake City, and that one had an 18-inch wall, and we put 18 inches of fiberglass in that wall. So it's got an R72. They'll love it. So.
All right, thank you. So the next question comes from Dale in, let's see, oops, I skipped one. Next question comes from Lawrence in Bar Harbor, Maine. And the question's about aircrete and elastomeric coatings. Do they require an undercoat, ice shield, or seam trim prep?
Well, I'll jump into the elastomeric part of that, Dennis. The elastomeric does require kind of a seam prep. It's not really a trim. It's just they have a butter grade, they call it, and it's just it's like a thicker material that you can use to fill in some of the voids where like there's a seam where two pieces of plywood come together, for instance. But you do not put any kind of underlayment underneath the elastomeric. I mean, you do have primer coats, base coats, and a finish coat. So there's several coats involved. But you don't do like you would with maybe a shingled roof where you would use like an ice and water underlayment. Essentially, the elastomeric is the entire roofing system from the plywood to the finished coat is all the elastomeric. Dennis and I were talking about the aircrete, and we don't really have gotten any feedback from dome home owners that have used aircrete on their domes to really know how that would perform. I mean, do you have more to add to the aircrete aspect, Dennis, or the elastomeric?
No, really. If you're going to try a product, you want some history. We've got a lot of domes here going back to 1975. We've tried things. We know some things that worked, some things that didn't work. So if there's a new product that you're going to say, well, gee, this looks like a really good product. I know somebody's got a question here later on a polymer coating. Well, to me, that is a vapor barrier. So now where are your other vapor barriers? So all these products relate to each other in the makeup of this wall roof system that we have. And if you don't do it right, you'll have condensation on the inside, or you'll have something that's going to, sun is going to degrade that. So it's probably the reason why we've got, like I said, 98% of our domes are done with high-grade shingles. They're going to last for that 50-year period. They're class 4 rated hail, if you're in a hailstorm area. We had a dome in Iowa that went through, those of you who've been on it before, I talked about the derecho. The dome in Cedar Rapids was right in the middle of that storm. 140 to 150 mile an hour wind speed for 15 to 20 minutes sustained. Not a shingle was lifted on the roof. We're waiting for pictures from this customer. We haven't gotten pictures of his construction, let alone pictures of the storm. But he said, what's there a picture of? It's my dome. Nothing's wrong with it. Well, your neighbor's house, So it's it's a situation where, you know, in the early years, the hippies were trying to find anything, and I have to place myself somewhere in that range.
To say you've been
They're trying
around
to
long
find
enough,
anything.
Dennis. We were just
Yeah,
talking
right.
about that.
They've been, you know, you go to the dump and you find they were finding car tops that they'd torch and get the triangle out of metal, you know, pre-painted, right? And then they'd weld it together, and then, you know, that's if you knew how to weld. So it's not a roofing material. We stick with conventional materials, so you're not dealing with something that's so esoteric that you can't put it on yourself. We don't recommend elastomerics in a cold climate zone. We've had some domes with some problems, not related more to the elastomeric, is dealing with the rest of the system. So we can talk about that. We've got domes in Colorado with elastomerics that were done in 1983, which is now 38 years ago. They're just fine. And actually, they haven't even been recoated. But there were 7 or 8 layers of this thing on there. So it works well in a dry climate zone. Okay.
All right. So the next question comes from Dale in Newport Richey, Florida. And Dale would like to know, just how accurate do the struts have to be for a trouble-free dome raising?
Well, Derrick and I talked about these questions beforehand, and I made a comment to Derrick. They have to be somewhere between at least a 1/16 of an inch to an inch.
Well, and we jokingly say that because we have seen people put together domes where the struts were probably an inch off, and it works. You got to kind of work a little harder at it. I guess the best way to say it is the more accurate they are, or the closer to the exact measurement they're supposed to be, the smoother everything goes. You can have a little leeway in there, but we really don't recommend very much at all. I mean, we want them right on the money. But yeah, we did unfortunately see some domes where a bunch of them were about an inch off, and they still managed to get it together okay. But then that also impacts everything else, your exterior panels. So it's just good to get those right and dialed in, and then that way every other component from that point on, your interior panels, exterior panels, everything else just goes together so much better. So I would say if we were to say something, it'd be a 1/16 to an 1/8 maybe. I don't know if we'd recommend up to an inch, but.
Well, I usually use a 1/16 of an inch, which means plus or minus a 32nd of an inch on each end. So
Right.
that's, you can do that. It's not hard to do that with today's table saws and setups and stops that you have, and you know, the checking every 10th strut that you're cutting. Did you slam, if you get a wood stop and you slammed a piece of lumber against it and you moved another 1/8 of an inch, you're going to be off. So you got to do it right.
Yep.
I scare the concrete contractors don't like 1/16 of an inch. They don't like 1/8 of an inch. But
Well, I was going to say, and I've been to domes where the concrete's really been off by quite a bit, or the foundation in general. And when you build the dome, I mean, the dome's going to be where it's going to be because everything's, you know, especially if it's one of our kits, it's going to be exactly where it's going to be. And it usually works with the foundation being off a little bit. I mean, it just, then when you do your finishes, you know, you just have to compensate for the fact that maybe the foundation's 2 inches off here. That dome that Dennis was referring to in Iowa, actually, I went and helped on that dome. And in that case, the foundation walls were off, like this wall would be 2 inches longer than it was supposed to be. The other one would be an inch shorter than it was supposed to be. And it was like that all the way around the dome. I mean, that's not ideal, but ultimately it's not that big of a deal. They're able to still build the dome, and it didn't really slow them down much, but it's just like anything. The more accurate all the components are, the better they all go together, and the easier it is when you do your finishes at the end. You're not trying to, you know, bump out your siding around, you know, concrete because it was poured in the wrong spot. But okay, I think I'm kind of excited. We got one more question, and then we get to get a new person in here to answer a question. So that'll be good.
Yeah,
Right.
now we're getting there. Well, we have two more questions. Next question comes from Melody in Istanbul, Turkey, and wants to know what the biggest challenges are of dome building.
It's really understanding the basics of building. We've got a construction manual, very detailed to put the building together, but it's the sequencing. It's when someone really looks at it and goes, oh, I got a better idea, or skips a step, or says, well, I don't need to do that. So it's really, I'm going to say that the challenge of building is a conventional house or otherwise. If you don't know how to do it, you need to ask a lot of questions and rely on the videos that you see on YouTube. There's a couple of programs that are out there that Derrick and I both watch. And the construction guide. We have another supplement to our construction manual that shows you standard ways to do things, to build things. And they are going to show you and talk to you, and we make ourselves available by phone. List, and it's got my cell phone number, Tessa's cell phone number, Derrick's cell phone number, Nancy's cell phone number, and Debbie's cell phone number. You're going to find one of us somewhere, or they're going to find me somewhere to get a question answered. We don't want you standing on that site with a group of people. If you're putting up one of our domes, it should go up very easily. And if you're trying to do something and you can't do it, don't invent something, get an answer for what you're doing. We have, oh yeah, we forgot about that. That's the newest thing we've added. If you're doing a dome raising, we now have a Zoom conference that you can buy from us, the Zoom time. So we are trying this out here. So it's 4 hours, 6 hours, or 8 hours that Derrick or I would be available during that time period, watching you with a Zoom camera. You're going to have a computer there. You got to have internet. And we're going to be able to look at what you're doing. When you say, hey, I got a problem here, or what about this? Do I worry about that? No, don't worry about it. You know, or yes, you should worry about it. So that's what we want you to understand about us. We're going to be there with you somehow. And with the Zoom thing, boy,
Oh, we might have lost you, Dennis.
Yeah, he froze.
we've got people out there probably still out. I froze.
You're
Oh,
back
no.
now. Well, you're
back
frozen,
now.
but your voice is back.
That's-
The internet challenges of up north. That's why I'm down here in Mankato.
Okay, so this is exactly what I was saying when I froze. Am I still on right now? I'm talking about the guys outside down the street that are putting up our high-speed internet. We're working off some DSL lines that we have, and you wouldn't believe it's probably worse than dial-up. But the test we did a week ago with this system, the new system we've got, it's going to, we did a speed test.
Oh, there you go again.
300 down. You repeat that then. You tell them.
Yeah, we're basically looking at about well, what would that be? A 3,000% improvement. So yeah, we're looking forward to being able to finally have some good, reliable internet. It's been a challenge. That's part of why I come down here to co-host this, just in case the signal drops off. So yeah, our apologies when that happens. We were supposed to be ready tonight, right, Dennis? But now we're hoping maybe tomorrow or something. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, if you do ask for us to help consult the dome raising project, we'll make sure we're on good internet. So, but all right, Carrie. Now we're down to one more before we get
Yes,
a
one
special
more.
guest appearance. So okay, great.
And I can testify that it is pretty easy because I've been on a dome raising and I got up on that scaffolding and put struts into the dome, and this is not my specialty. So it it can be done, and it goes very quickly when it's all put, all cut correctly and everything. So that's my 2 cents for the evening. The next question is from Graham, and I'm not going to embarrass myself with the city name, in New Zealand. And Graham unfortunately was not able to stay with us for the whole meeting, but he would like to know, do we have any domes already built in New Zealand? He saw info on our website about someone north of Auckland who had been working on a dome with natural spaces. And he was just wondering, there are other domes, but he's not sure if they're ours or what we might know about them.
Really, the answer is no, we don't. We did sell a connector kit to this fellow in northern New Zealand, and he just hasn't done the dome yet. So there is part of our system sitting down there ready to be erected. Maybe he can help the guy get his dome together and build one in New Zealand. There was a dome builder in New Zealand a long time ago during the 80s and 90s. He passed away a while ago, but he had done a lot of domes, very custom domes. He was really great craftsman in doing it. His name is John Rich. And there's a bunch of domes in New Zealand and Australia from him. So they're there.
Nice.
So
All right.
now
All
we're ready.
right. We're ready for our special guest star. So John and Nancy would like to, they're from Crossville, Tennessee. They would like to know, stained concrete floors seem to be a favorite for many domes. I would like to hear some real world experience about having them. For instance, hard on the joints, easy to clean, easy to maintain, sweating in the summer, cost versus something else. Basically, Tessa, would you choose that flooring again if you did it all over?
Absolutely. I really like the concrete floors. They do not sweat. They are very inexpensive because you have to pour that concrete floor anyway, and it costs me about $150 in stain, and I was buying non-toxic stain. I have a mixture. The information's online about how to do that. I used a sponge mop to stain it. I had one of Dennis's guys who was working with me on it because this is a pretty big floor, and we would do sections at a time. Don't get a sponge mop that has an imprint in it unless you want an imprint on your floor, because I know someone else who made that mistake. But I think I probably did about 3 coats, and then it kind of depends on how dark you want it. And then I put a polyurethane. It was a non-toxic concrete polyurethane over it. It does get a patina to it, and I like that. I don't like a solid color. If you wanted a solid color, you could have the stain put right into the concrete before it's poured. But I like kind of the patina. It does, there's a couple spots where it's worn a little bit, but it's not bad. It's like where my desk chair is, where I'm rolling around all the time. So that's, the only spot really. And I just have a little bottle of touch-up that I do it over. And we had a movie made here. I don't know if any of you've seen it, but it's if you're interested, you can check in with us. But they did a lot of things on the floor. They hauled in all kinds of equipment. They stuck things to the floor. And then they just came back and, touched it up in a few spots, and it was fine. As I said, it doesn't sweat. It's real warm and cozy in the wintertime because we have radiant floor heating. It's nice and cool in the summertime. And then if you want, we have an area rug under our couch and everything, so that works out. And I don't think I vacuumed it today, so don't get too close. I would highly recommend it. The time we did it, there weren't very many stains available for concrete. Now there are, so you can look and see what you can find out there. But otherwise, if you're interested in this kind of brown with a little bit of a reddish tinge to it, you can find that recipe on our website. Any other questions about that?
I'll make another
Yeah.
comment about it. Just the color is also a part of this red oxide, iron oxide. It's a reddish tone. And don't buy the 30-pound bag that you have to buy because it's the minimum. We'll give you the cup. You need like 1 cup or 2 cups to add in this mixture. We'll send it to you because we got a whole bag full.
Find a spot in your house like I did under the stairs to do testing on the concrete. Concrete does seem to vary. I did staining, a gray stain on our cabin up in northern Minnesota. And the concrete was not as high quality as this concrete. This concrete has ash in it. And I don't know if that just made it more substantial or what, but it was easier to stain. The other thing you don't want to do is stain when you have your radiant floor heating on, because it heats up the stain and dries it as you're putting it on. That does not work well. So, but anyway, go ahead and do it. You can always put a carpet over it later, and you can always put whatever. You won't want to, but you can always. Carpets are really bad for the health. This is good for your health. So small amount of carpet's fine, but
You can't see it, but currently she's walking bare feet.
Yes,
barefoot.
I wasn't going to mention that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tessa.
John and Nancy, did you have any follow-up questions?
I think the only one is, have you ever seen anyone do stamped concrete within the home?
There's 2 different ways you're talking about stamped. Yes, we've seen stamped outside because it does create this texture, this imprint. But one of the things our daughter did was she, down in her new lower level in an older house, did stenciling with these 12-inch by 12-inch stencils.
Yeah, that's very nice.
And it was
A
like,
lot more work than I put into it.
yeah, but
it
it was
really looks good.
phenomenal. And she's got
Yeah.
a now 4-year-old, and it looks good.
I wouldn't do anything that adds texture to it, because it will be filled with sand and dirt, and it will bother your feet going barefoot.
Okay.
So I wouldn't do either one of those, but
And we've never had joint problem or problem staining on the concrete. In fact, this is her desk over here in back of us. And she changed it a little bit here and went to a tilt up or raised up computer.
So I can stand a lot of the time.
So she can stand a lot of the time. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. All
Yeah,
right.
it's a great question and a fun floor. I love that floor. All right, so the next question comes from Michael in Waverly, Nova Scotia. Would Natural Spaces Domes be able to assist us with engineering our unique plans? They're interested in polymer coverings and would like to hear your opinion and experiences with using it as an outer covering solution for domes.
We really don't have any experience at all with what you're calling a polymer coating. Again, you got to be dealing with something. We did in the very beginning something that's not a vapor barrier, or if it is a vapor barrier, you have to know how to deal with that. In the 70s, we were dealing with a neoprene hypalon roofing system. So you'd put this coating of neoprene on, and then the cover coat to the neoprene was hypalon. Got to be real pricey. It's an industrial coating and really didn't lend itself a lot. Hard to deal with, expensive. So we just kind of gave it up back then as one of our trials that we didn't work too well. Another one was some elastomeric that was relatively inexpensive. And the problem was it wasn't a high enough grade. It chalked. So the skylight windows had this streaking of the chalkiness coming down over them from the roof coating of elastomeric. The brand that we use now is actually GAF bought the company. It's called Roof Mate. And that has a top coat that doesn't chalk, it doesn't give off anything. And it's color coded to whatever color you want. You go to the Lowe's or Home Depot's, find a color in the color chart for whatever, Behr paint, for Pittsburgh paint, whatever it is, some name brand paint, and you can give them that chip or that color code, and they will match that. And they'll send you a sample. So you can look at that sample before you go and buy all this stuff. So, but like I said, we're really concerned in the cold climate zone with elastomerics. So the Nova Scotia issue is moisture. You're living on an island, so you got to deal with some problems there.
Okay.
Do we have an engineer in Canada? There are a couple of engineers that have dealt with our domes. We can give you the name of the engineer. I'm not sure he's registered in Nova Scotia, because the states in here, we have engineers registered in various states. There's 4 or 5 engineers as part of this group, and they cover all 50 states. But the main engineer, he's only got 4 licenses. He lives in Los Angeles, and he does, I think, Oregon and Washington, and then one other strange one somewhere else. So, but then the other engineers have stamps and can sign the plans for all of those other states. So I don't know what the one in Canada does. I know he's in, Derrick, was he in British Columbia or Alberta?
I believe it was in British Columbia, the one I
Yeah.
was talking to. Yeah.
Sure.
So, and I know there's like 3 of them. So I think we almost have it covered. But yeah, I guess I don't know that for 100% sure. So.
Okay.
Well, our next question comes from George in Alexandria, Ontario, who wants to know about drawing and assembly logistic methods. So what is our method for drawing and assembly?
We were kind of talking about, I don't know if you could get a link up there, Tanner, for the construction manual. I know that was one thing we thought would be useful for that question. Did you have something else you want to jump in? That's kind of your specialty, Dennis. So,
Well, the drawing and then separately the assembly logistic method is a construction manual. That's what we're going to tell you. All of the components that we have would be shown in that construction manual, and you're going to just follow through on that. Drawing wise, I'm not sure what your real question is, George, but we do complete construction drawings. And then if you need that stamped and signed by an engineer, we're not the engineers. So if you're doing something out of the ordinary, then our engineer would look at that and create the engineering data for that particular dome or foundation or whatever this unusual situation would be. So drawing wise, we can do it all.
cool.
All right.
Wow.
That's it.
So we have one more question before we roll in. We do have a couple of really good questions in the chat. I'm hoping we have a few minutes for.
Oh, sure. I was
but
like, we're actually down to our last one and we're only a few minutes over. That's pretty amazing. So
Yeah. So our final question comes from Jennifer in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Wants to know, what are the average costs of a finished dome, and is it possible to also use materials other than wood to finish it after the frame is up, like cob plaster finish, aircrete, glass, bamboo, or straw bale as an insulator for the house?
All right. So the average cost of a finished dome. It's the cost calculation guide that's on the menu bar. If you look at the menu bar on our homepage, you'll see what we're dealing with. It says, I'm going to get this right, dome pricing. And there's a drop-down menu on that. And then it'll say cost calculation guide. So you figure out your total square footage that you're going to build, and that includes a basement. So basements, main floor, upper floor, cupola, extensions. Figure out all that square footage. It's gross square footage to the outside of the wall. Plug that number into the box, press calculate, and a matrix of numbers comes up. How are you going to build it? It says owner builder, or owner contractor, licensed contractor. There's 4 variations on that. And then vertically, it's A, B, and C. Is it going to be really cheap or average or really expensive? Are you going to put in 3, 4 bathrooms? Is the kitchen range the 6-burner Wolf range for $10,000? What are you going to put into this thing? That's where your cost variations are going to be. The cost calculation takes care of the dome and everything inside of it. So that shows you that it's the bathrooms, the kitchens, the flooring, everything. We don't talk about and don't include this in that cost calculation for the driveway, the septic system, the hookups that you'd have to do if you're in the city, landscaping, all this extraneous stuff to the dome that's extra to that cost. We last year late changed the pricing on that and raised it with what we saw happening out there. If you live in California, maybe you want to add another 20%, 25%. There's some really high costs that you're dealing with in California for whatever reason. I mean, near gas is almost $4 a gallon right now, I think. So it's a situation where you have to be realistic. And we tell a lot of people, do a reverse calculation. What's your budget? And see how much square footage you can build for your budget by just plug something in. Plug 2,000 square feet in there and see what these costs are and where you fit in this cost matrix. And if you say, oh, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to do it, I'll do an average quality quantity. So here's where I fit right here. Oh, wait a minute, that's way over what I want to spend. Then change the square footage back down to 1,700 or 1,500 until you get that number within the range that you think you want to be. Realize that you're always going to have something on that site that's going to cost you more money. There's going to be something, the driveway, or what you didn't know underneath the soil because you didn't do a soil test and it's a giant big rock that you got to get out of there, or a peat bog that you're building on and you need piers going down to the bottom of the peat bog. I mean, there's a variety of things that if you don't know what you're going to get into, you will as you get into the project, and they will be cost added on to the point where you need a, what do you want to call it, slush fund, extra costs. Provide for some of that. I'm assuming most of you will be watching HGTV at some point, and you watch their programs and you see them. And there's always, oh yeah, look at this. The remodeling ones are really good. Oh gee, we got to rewire your whole entire house because they use knob and tube wiring. I mean, yeah, there's just so many different things out there that you can't predict it. We do, for a charge, we do a 10-page Excel spreadsheet. We call it the Mac Dome budget. It's coming off the Mac computer. And I don't know if that's been changed yet, but it says Macintosh computer, I think, still in there. It's from when I started doing it, the Macintosh. So telling you what that cost is, you got to look at that chart and you'll see what it is. The other materials using on the inside are really, again, what are you trying to do? You can look at the dome in Norway, where they made their, some of the interior walls were done with cob wall construction, where they mixed in, they've got clay, they've got a sand mixture, they've got hay mixed into that, straw mixed into that. So you can do other things. From an insulating standpoint, what are you trying to do? You realize the dome is going to come up and go over. I mean, you're going to put some insulation in the dome up here. Is that going to stay there? Is it something that's going to have to dry first? How do you hold it up in place? So look at standard materials, really, there are alternatives. You can use mineral wool, and believe it or not, we now have in the US wool, sheep's wool for insulation. It's pricey. You can watch this online. You can look up wool insulation. It'll probably come up. There's a company importing from New Zealand in 20-foot containers. And they are packaging this and delivering it for a fee. So it comes in a bag, you can blow it in. So there are alternative things, but look at the cost and what is the R value? I'm not quite sure, but it is a benign material. Well, so is the insulation that we use somewhat. It's not as like wood, not like wool, but our insulation has no phenolic resins, no formaldehyde in it. It's made by Knauf, but it's an industrial grade that has a higher R factor.
That's a recycled material too, I believe.
Yeah,
Knauf uses recycled glass to make the fiberglass, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
All right. So
okay. We have some chat questions then, Carrie?
just a couple, and one of them
Okay.
will be quick.
Sure.
So George was wondering if, so the construction manuals are in PDF form, but I think I answered that. They come in the binder, and then they also have the CD-ROM that has the PDF on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we have international people that, you know, the shipping of the big book is kind of costly, so then we can provide you know, a digital version. Yeah.
Okay, and then are the drawings done in Autocad? And I thought they were, but I wanted to ask first.
Well, it's kind of a hybrid. Dennis still hand draws a lot of them, but then he works with some AutoCAD drafters as well, and he works with an engineer. So it's kind of a team of people that bring it from, Dennis is the creative person that is able to use the 50 years experience to kind of design the dome, and then he'll hand it off to CAD drafters at a certain point for elevations and different things. And so I guess you probably should answer that question before me, Dennis, since that's kind of your whole thing.
No, you did good. Yeah, I'm going to hand draw this thing with the mechanical pencil, a Mayline parallel rule, triangle, adjustable triangles. I've been doing it since 5th grade. I've been designing houses since 5th grade, and it's a long time ago. I won't say how long ago, but it's a long time ago. So I'm comfortable with that, and I can design the house. I can create the design and make this thing work faster than the guy that I have that does CAD drafting can design the house. But making the changes, you know, I'll draw up all these set of plans, and then you go, oh, I want to move the stairway now 8 feet over. Well, I have to redraw all this stuff, where the computer comes along and goes, oh, let me take this, I'll cut and I'll paste it over here, then I'll move this and I'll change the joists and I'll change these walls, and click, click, and they're done. So oftentimes, if that's the case, I'll give the hand drawing to Ken, my CAD drafter, and tell him, okay, measure this whole thing, which he does, physically measure it on to scale, 1/4-inch scale, to make the changes by putting it into his CAD computer. His CAD is computer aided design. So he puts it in his computer and then he actually creates the exterior elevation views, because then we can do 3D elevation views on the outside. So
Cool.
it's still a system where the building inspection departments are saying, well, we need, you know, digital drawings. Fine. I take my hand drawing, it goes through our scanner, we send them a PDF. And then we get this thing back of, wait a minute, I can't do anything with these lines. What's up? And we say it's hand drawn. And I've had some professionals say they didn't believe it was hand drawn. Who's doing hand drawings these days? So I kind of showed them that it can be done. and get it to be digital by simply sending a PDF. So we meet their criteria.
All right, thanks, Dennis. So Denise had a follow-up question. Can you open up the walls and redo insulation if the house was built in 1969, assuming the insulation is done from the inside out?
Derrick, take it. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I know, I think we were kind of emailing back and forth about that, and you can absolutely do that. It's not uncommon for older homes to be updated at some point, and usually insulation was a weak spot. Now, I think with yours, it's just 2x4s, I believe, is what we were talking about earlier. So you're kind of limited on the insulation. So in that case, you could, well, Dennis actually on one of his own personal home domes has essentially built out the outside a little bit to give it a bigger space for insulation. So, I mean, you can go all out. If you're like, hey, I need a new roof and I want to do this. In fact, we're going to be posting some video soon on our website of a remodel we're doing currently on one of the shop domes, where it's the same situation where what we did is we put some foam on the outside, added plywood over that, and then we're roofing over the plywood like you would on a conventional roof. So in your case, it depends on your requirements, but you could, if you pulled out the fiberglass and did spray foam, you're going to get a good air seal, and then you're going to get a higher density per inch of R value. It's still not a whole lot, but that would be one option. And then you can increase the depth of your struts to the inside, which sometimes is hard because you're gonna have walls and all these different things that are there, or easier. But if you have a brand new roof, it might not be the best option, but on the outside, you can beef it out a little bit as well. So, but if you don't want to do anything major, that would probably be your best option, would just be to spray foam. And then you're gonna get, what, about 6.7, I think now, Dennis, almost an R7 per inch. So if you have 3.5 inches, it's not a whole lot, but it'd be a lot more than just the fiberglass. You'll probably get like a good, and more importantly than the R value, you also get a good air seal. And that's a big part of it too. It doesn't take much air leakage to really reduce the energy efficiency of a building. You can imagine you have an R100 in your house, but you open the window crack and you might as well have an R15 in the house with the window closed. So that's another benefit to the spray foam. What do you think, Dennis? You kind of retrofitted a lot of domes to bump up R values and stuff. On her situation with a panelized dome, would you think it'd be, what would be your suggestion on the best approach?
It might be a double situation. I don't know. You got to look at your shingles and your roof. Are they nearing the end of their life? Are you ready to make that change? If you are, then your options are wider. Like
Yeah, because I'm in the midst, I'm under contract to get a new roof because I've had some leaking issues this year. So they're talking May, June to bring me in. So there's going to be a lot of work going on, and they're taking out skylights. So the interior paneling will be off, and I'm trying to figure out, while they're doing all these changes, one panel to remove a skylight is going to affect another panel. I'm like, maybe I can redo the insulation because I'm in Pennsylvania, and in the summertime, that's when I'm having the bigger issues, is in the summertime, keeping it cool.
Sure.
So yeah, we took our 1980 shop dome, built in 1980, with a 2x6 strut and fiberglass insulation on that full 5.5 inches, 3/4 plywood on the outside. Now that didn't matter. If you might have 1/2 inch, that's okay. We did 2-inch foam board cut into triangles, and you don't get your dome I can see is a larger panel dome. It's going to take you a couple of sheets, but you make triangles out of this foam. We tapered the edges 6 or 7 degrees so that they didn't leave a big gap right there where those panels come together. Otherwise, you're going to have, in 2 inches, you'll have a 1/2 inch gap if you cut it at 90 degrees. It was not hard to do. You put a template on top of your foam, cut it out, put your saw at 7 degrees, and make this cut all on 3 sides. We then came and foamed in between that joint. So we sealed the joint with spray foam. Sort of like Great Stuff, but much higher quality. put a 1/2-inch plywood nailed through the foam into the 3/4 plywood along the edges. So now we have a new roof, 1/2-inch plywood, and put an underlayment on that, which we did is the deck armor, which is a breathable underlayment to the shingles, and then put Malarkey Legacy shingles on top of that. We've got video on it as part of what we want to do for the Dome School. That's going to be a segment in the Dome School, actually, showing this operation that we did. And we'll make that available too. It'll be part of our construction manual stuff. But now we've got a much more insulation on the outside with fiberglass on the inside. We have taken some inside panels off and put new fiberglass in them because we've done rewiring or remodeling, like you're saying, and then you can hit those panels. You want to do a thermal scan. If you have a utility that subsidizes that, you do an energy audit, and you will have them come out with a thermal scan gun, and they will look at that whole thing and provide you a report to show you the dark spots, because where it's fully insulated or nicely insulated, it'll be a whiter or grayer, lighter. So the dark spots are where you don't have any insulation, or you got wet, or there's no R value. You need about a 20-degree difference between the inside and outside to really make this thing show up. So it's not a bad time now to do that. And then you can say, wow, there's no insulation in this panel. And they can take that panel off and redo it. So,
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
sure.
All right. So two last questions. One follow-up from Maurice, who says that seen most of our domes are either 3/8 or 5/8, but very few are 1/2 inch. Is there a reason for that?
That's
Yeah.
what he means, profile maybe, Carrie, is,
Yep.
and they used to refer to them in 8ths, but technically they would be 9ths. So it'd be like a low profile, high profile, or a mid dome. But the dome Dennis is in is actually a mid profile dome or a 1/2 dome. And then a 5/9 would be when you're talking a 3-frequency dome, where the equator actually goes through the center of the triangles. It's not on a clean line. So where his triangles meet the square windows below, that's a riser wall. That would be the bottom of the dome, which would be 1/2 of a sphere.
Right there.
So if we were talking a low profile dome, like a 3-frequency dome where it's an odd frequency, so there isn't a line of triangles that lands right on the hemisphere, it'd either be low profile, which would be 4/9, or high profile, which would be 5/9. And so it's either just a little less than 1/2 of a sphere, or it's a little bit more than 1/2 of a sphere in a 3-frequency. But if you're in a 4-frequency like Dennis is, you usually are going to be a mid profile or a 1/2 dome, but there is a low profile version of this as well. And then there's a 2-frequency, which is typically just going to be a mid profile 1/2 dome. So the mini dome, for instance, is a 1/2 dome. It's just part of it's removed.
So one final thing to that is that this level that's a 1/2 dome is a 6/12 dome, because there are 12 horizontal rows of triangles as you go from North Pole to South Pole. So this is the 6/12 line. This line is the 5/12 line. So
Yep.
that's what we're dealing with. That's how many rows of shingles or of triangles that you're going to be building. If all you built was to this level, and you left this row of triangles off, that dome would drop down to this point on top of the riser wall and then be a low profile dome. I'm using the equator as a mid profile, the equator of the Earth. The Tropic of Cancer is the low profile, and the Tropic of Capricorn is the high profile. That's what you're dealing with. You slice this sphere at those points.
Right. So yeah, it all depends on what you need for an upper floor. How large is your dome? How much headroom do you need right next to the wall? Like Dennis can stand with his shoulder touching the wall and not, have a problem with headspace. So there's a lot of factors in choosing which profile you want. But typically it's the size you're looking for in diameter and how much second floor room you need to have kind of mostly dictate if there's an advantage one way or the other. Going with a lower profile saves a little on cost. It's less materials to build it. So there's a cost factor in there as well. But again, it's kind of what do you need? And that's most of our domes are kind of, we try not to build our struts too large. So typically the way Dennis has it set up is we start with a 2 frequency dome. And when you get to a certain size, we subdivide it further into a 3 frequency. And as it grows more, we subdivide it into a 4 frequency and so on. So the larger domes have similar size triangles to the smaller domes. It's just more frequencies. And I can see you're looking in your dome and you have a 3 frequency dome up there, a 3 frequency low profile, I believe. So that's, at least that's the Bucky Fuller. That was kind of his main dome, was that 3 frequency low profile. So, but
Well, thank you to the experts for interpreting my misinterpretation, and apologies to Maurice for reading the question incorrectly. So I'm glad you guys knew what you were talking about. All right, our final question of the night.
right.
Has a blower door test requirements changed the way you build?
It really doesn't change the way you build. You need a tight house these days. You don't want air getting into the wall cavity and roof cavity of the structure. You may allow that because you've got a hybrid system, there's foam insulation in the wall, and that's a vapor barrier along the outside. Then you don't care. Then it's tight. But you don't know that until you do a blower door test. It is now required in the new codes. Does your state operate under the new codes? Probably not. States are usually 3 to 6 years, sometimes more, 9 years behind the current code, which is a 2021 code. So blower door test, highly recommended. We did 2 of them here. The first one gets all your major leaks. You can do a smoke bottle test and you can watch the air go out of a crack in the wall that you visually can't see. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
So we can talk about the Dome School where we get into more detail. The Dome School is coming up May 1st and 2nd. We are planning another Dome School for September if things work out in Minnesota.
Live one, right, Dennis?
A live one, yes.
Yeah.
But the May 1st and 2nd one, yes, I'm using the word live, interactive, virtual Dome School. It's like the Zoom call. We're going to be here. The video is recorded, but we are saying what we want to say about that particular subject. We'll get into as much detail. We stop the video to talk about things. We answer these questions. It's 5 hours on Saturday and 5 hours on Sunday. Now, normal school here, like the one in September we're planning, it starts at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday and goes to about 6 with 2 breaks with a lot of food in between there, and those morning break and the afternoon break. And then Sunday is the same thing. We start at 8:30 and we go till about 5:30. There's also a Friday night component. So we're in here with dinner, but we're in here doing a math class, or actually in the other domes doing a math class. So
Yeah.
the program is online. It'll be updated tomorrow. It's not updated, but it'll be updated tomorrow. Tanner's online, so he heard me say that. So he's realizing he's going to have to do some updating. So, and we do kind of fluctuate in there with who's going to be an owner builder, who's going to have total contractor built. Are there contractors that have some questions? We get a wide mix of people there. So, but that's something that you can look at. The cost of the Dome School that we have coming up May 1st and 2nd is $239, and it is a credit that you will get on your purchase of a dome from us. So that'll be part of it. And also you will get a credit when you buy a construction manual in advance of buying a dome. So the construction manual is $250. That's credited to your dome purchase. There's also this time, there's a $50 coupon with that $239 cost for the dome school that you can use on any product that we sell, from interior planning kits to the construction manual to product. So that's something that we're doing. We will have another dome tour coming up on May 22nd or 1st. What is it? Saturday.
22nd.
22nd, Saturday. There'll be somewhere in the range of 9 or 10 domes. We got 3 new domes, plus we're doing more elaborate video from our complex here, because this is a virtual tour and we're realizing, oh, people aren't able to come here. So we're making that a little more in depth, I'll put it that way. There's another tour that we'll be having live on October, I want to say 2nd, the first Saturday in October will be a live tour. Fairly comfortable that that will be a live tour, that will have, usually we have 8, 9, 10, 11 houses, dome houses, from sometimes in Red Wing. Rich has got a house down there that he's on the solar tour. It's also the same time as a solar tour. So a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
stay
right.
tuned.
And just a reminder, we are taking a break in the month of May, and we'll be back with monthly dome talks in the month of June. So stay tuned for that. And just thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great night. We got through all the questions. This may be a record.
As I
we
say, I
did.
guess first, yeah.
Well, it's a
So-
little late too, though.
It's a little late, but thank you so much for everyone's participation and time. And we will see you back in, well, hopefully we'll see you for Dome School or Dome Tour, but then we'll definitely see you back here in June.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
All right. Have a good night.
Very much.